everyone, and welcome to Mad Chat, the multi-award winning therapeutic radiography-led oncology podcast. So my name's Jo McNamara and I'm joined by fellow host Nama Joel Anderson.
Hi everyone.
Now I'm so giddy and excited because I've had the absolute pleasure of working with Sarah Jane in my role as a senior lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, and Naman and I have also had you on Insta Live with us doing an interview before. So Sarah Jane, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Sarah Jane and
It's always the hardest question, isn't it?
you're right. I'm here.
How do I know you?
You know me because I have cancer, basically. I have ovarian cancer and I had womb cancer, and 3 years ago I had surgery to treat that and chemotherapy, and after that I was left with some problems with sexual intimacy and my mental health, and there were some issues around medical weight stigma leading up to my diagnosis and during my treatment. So basically I talk about that now, and hopefully it opens the conversation up for other people feel empowered by it. Some other people on Instagram have been saying to me, you've made me go and check and think more about my health, and so that's kind of what I want really, is just that others can learn from, the professionals can learn from my experience, and other people can feel empowered by it and advocate for themselves, which is the most important thing.
I think it's fair to say you're pretty inspirational. When you share your story, it's one that actually as a healthcare professional you wince at. I've been really open with you about the fact that it's made me ashamed of some of the things that have happened to you along your diagnosis and treatment pathway. But I think there's so much to learn from it, and it's sad that we have to learn. But as you've said, you sharing your experience is really powerful in being able to elicit change within
It gives me hope, which is why I love you two, what you're doing. It just you're advocating for everybody to speak up for themselves, and for the students, the therapeutic radiography students. It's really I love it. It's my favourite. I think.
I'm going to ask you a question which obviously we know the answer to, but why is it important to be inclusive in healthcare?
It's important because we're all equal, and when you're excluded from the conversation, and even in the hospital setting, you don't see posters that are inclusive with couples, same-sex couples, or it's all just based around just the heteronormative I kind of understand that, because it's kind of what I think healthcare professionals are taught. I don't think they're taught anything different than that
until now.
But it's really important because you feel invisible. I know I felt invisible. Conversations, being referred to as a Mrs. was a big thing for me. I had that because people assumed that I was a Mrs. and not a Miss, and that I had a husband, and then that whole conversation, people then think that I've got support, that I've got a male partner, and I was on my own and dealing with it on my own, and it just doesn't seem to I think they look at me and think I'm a certain age and that I should be married and all of that, and it's just it's not how it is, and not everybody's the same, and we are all different, and you have to be inclusive, because especially with cancer, I think, because you need to make sure that you feel heard by your teams. I will have a relationship with my team for the rest of my life, and I need to know that they hear me and that they see me, and when they talk, and it's just based on it's just heteronormative, and you just feel excluded from the conversation.
So Sarah Jane, I know you're going to share your experience tomorrow as part of your talk, but I think it would really help listeners to maybe have some insight into what you went through, if you're happy to kind of reshare that. So obviously being diagnosed was particularly difficult for you. Why do you think that was?
Because whenever I went to the doctors, all everybody saw was how much I weighed, and so that was used as basically as an excuse for every symptom that I had, and I had every symptom of ovarian cancer and womb cancer as well, and I was just sent away for over 2 years, or maybe even longer. I think there was some health problems that I had even before then that if they'd been looked into, they would have picked up. I had lymphedema in just one side in my right leg once, about 3 years before diagnosis, and if that had been followed up, as to why I was struggling, I didn't have good lymphatic drainage, and it was just on the one side, then maybe they would have picked up my tumour at that point. But because they just see my weight, that's all that they put everything down to.
Reflecting back on obviously your experience, how have you dealt with your emotions of it all?
Sorry?
Reflecting back on your experience, obviously through the cancer pathway, etc., how have you kind of coped or dealt with your emotions of it all?
How have I coped? Not very well. I didn't cope very well for the first 2 years, and I had therapy, and I got to a really low point where I actually contemplated taking my own life, which was scary. I had a pre-existing mental health problem before my cancer diagnosis, and having the cancer diagnosis and going through treatment sort of triggered that back again, so it became complex PTSD, which required a lot of treatment, and eventually I ended up having EMDR, which is a type of therapy for trauma, and I've not looked back ever since then, to be honest. I've not taken antidepressants. I was a bit reluctant to, because I'd had a previous history of taking them and they didn't work for me. So now it was just literally the EMDR, and now it's about being mindful, creative, talking, enjoying life, I think.
How is it living with cancer? Because obviously there's lots more media now around not just diagnosis and treatment, but also about kind of living with a long-term health condition. How do you find that you live your life now?
Each day at a time. Again, since therapy, it's a lot better. I used to wake up and think, is today the day I'm going to die? And that sounds drastic, but after treatment and surgery and everything I'd heard and the trauma, that's how I felt. Every day I'd wake up and I'd think, is this the day? But now it's really different. I wake up and I judge how I feel like when I wake up. So if I'm not feeling great, then I'll stay in bed. If I feel okay, I'll get up, I'll go for a walk. I manage my pain as best as possible. I am on quite a few tablets at the moment, but it's just like, I like to say sometimes it's a bit of a juggling act, because it really is. Whether it's sickness or whether it's pain or, acid reflux.
The list is
ongoing. The other day it was like 10 days without going to the loo, so it's like not good. So I've got a bowel blockage not at the moment, but I've got a narrowing of my colon from surgery, and they think it's adhesions and things like that. So
So there's a lot to contend with.
Yeah, I had major surgery, so I've kind of got to. I don't think you can have that sort of surgery without there being any consequences. So.
How do you find reliving your story over and over again?
As we've asked you to relive your story.
There's a lot, it feels like there's a lot, and it feels like there's a lot to say, and so I find like I waffle sometimes. So tomorrow with my talk, I've got prompts so that I don't waffle and I can get a few things in the conversation without it being just on one topic. So
I don't think I've ever heard you waffle.
Oh, I
Sarah
do.
Jane.
I do.
No, everything you say is so insightful, and I hang off your every word. So I would never class it as a waffle. I promise you. So we are renowned on Rad Chat, as I know you are acutely aware of talking about sex, intimacy. Nothing is off the table. And I know it's something that you're hugely passionate about, and obviously did a beautiful project with Macmillan around sex and intimacy. Why should every healthcare professional at UKIO talk to their patients or talk to their loved ones, or talk openly about sex and intimacy?
It's an important part of who we are. Feeling pleasure, feeling intimacy, feeling close to somebody, or even with yourself. It's an important part of who we are. For me, it definitely was. Before surgery and before the problems I've had. Being intimate with myself. It was a part of my daily routine. I don't want to say daily routine, but
go Sarah Jane.
It helps. It helps you to go to sleep. It helps to start the day. It's
best
good.
way to start a day.
It is good for for depression. It's just it's a massive subject and something that we don't talk enough about. Even with our partners, we don't talk enough about it. So
I did laugh earlier because I was talking to a colleague about the fact that it's only with you that I can stand outside of the pod box in UKIO and talk about masturbation. Amazing way to start a conference.
Well, there we go.
Welcome to Rad Chat. But yeah, it maybe is very difficult for some people to talk about, and I totally understand that. But I think the premise that we're trying to get across is that for some patients, no one may have spoken to them about any
They
sexual
didn't to me,
intimacy.
and I find that's the hardest thing I find out of all of it really, is that they operated on me, they removed parts of my body that are related to pleasure and intimacy, and they didn't even talk to me about how that would be impacted, and for me, and I've said to you before, I feel like it sort of removes a layer of trust between me and my team and my relationship with my team. It's almost like they lied to me or withheld something that is really, really important to me. I think we need to be having conversations and, maybe ask the patient if they're comfortable with it, if it's something they want to know about. I would have said yes. There's a lot of people out there that would have said yes. And like you say, there's some out there that would have said no.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, but for me, it really is definitely an important conversation to be had.
So you're speaking here at UKIO tomorrow.
Yeah.
How can people follow you on social media and find out more?
Gaming Northerner 77.
We had a discussion, didn't we? When you became famous on social media, you were like, "Shall I change my handle?" I'm so glad you haven't.
No,
I love
it's
Gaming
just me.
Northerner.
It's just me. I'm a gamer. I'm a Northerner. It's just who I am.
love it.
You're not 77 though.
No, I'm not 77. I was born in 77. I'm not 77. No. Yeah. I look it, feel it sometimes.
Well, we would definitely like to advertise the fact that at 4:45 on Tuesday at UKIO in 3A, you're giving your experience, and I would strongly encourage everyone to check it out. We also had the pleasure of having Sarah Jane on the podcast via Instagram and Instagram Live, so we will definitely share that on our stories again and make that easily accessible for everyone. But thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, and what you're doing is amazing. I love it.
Thank you.